afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan here again with Inspirational Influencer News, people making a difference. And today we truly have someone who is making a difference. Sopheia McMorris is known as the Executive Wisdom Mentor. She's also CEO and founder of Wisdom Speaks Life. And I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty exciting to me. So I'm going to be listening with my ears tuned, and I invite you to do likewise. She specializes in using wisdom to help people master and take control of their lives. Sopheia teaches and trains high performers in the art of self-mastery, which is self-leadership. Self-leadership makes you an effective leader that influences your thinking, feelings, and actions, expanding your personal power so that you can step into being the CEO of your life. Live life on your terms and drive your destiny. Her clients hire her to help them create and implement their one-page secret success strategy plan. Boy, I could certainly use one of those. I don't know about you. To expand their personal power for an integrated, harmonious, fulfilling life. Sopheia has a Bachelor of Science degree in African American Studies and Political Science. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and has over 20 years of experience. She has a weekly show on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And so we are here with Sopheia today to listen to her wisdom on wisdom. Sopheia, what is it that you want people to know that they absolutely must know today?
To work on their self-relationship. And that's the self-mastery that I teach and train people in the art of, and that's self-leadership. And it helps you to just become an even more effective leader when you're able to know yourself first and work on yourself. And then it gives you that edge to work with people in leadership and in corporate or in your business or wherever you are.
That sounds pretty good. So how do you do that? Because I think that can be pretty challenging.
Yes, it can be, because a lot of times we tend to just kind of live our lives and we live on that autopilot and we just kind of keep going day to day and doing those same things. But one of the first steps in self-mastery is to become aware. And so most of the time people are thinking, well, that's kind of obvious and everything, but awareness takes a little bit more work. I mean, you really have to start paying attention to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like all the things that people say sound so easy, but become self-aware. We're usually so worried about what are people thinking of us? What are we, that, there's no room for us to be thinking about us.
Exactly. And that's why I do the thing where I say, bring us back to where we can focus on ourselves first, because that's the key. You have the relationship you have with yourself will be the relationship you'll have for the rest of your life. While you may change relationships with friends, families, and all of those things, the self relationship is what you have for a lifetime. So it behooves you to actually do some work on yourself and really take that mastery into that perspective, so that way you can start moving yourself in the direction you want to go. A lot of times people want a lot of things in life. They want to be able to make an impact on the world. They want to be able to contribute to their family. They want to live their best life. And so all of those things takes the self relationship in order for you to be able to get there.
Well, it's good if people want all those things, because at least it makes them look elsewhere and realize that they might need some help. Because so often I think that people are so busy just kind of living life that they don't even realize that they actually could get help to live a more awesome life and have more control and have more opportunities to win their life. So
Right.
How exactly do you go about this?
Well, one of the things that we've known based on studies is that 95% of our lives are lived in the subconscious mind, and only 5% of our lives are lived consciously. So I asked the question, how do we get the 95% of us to be in support of that 5% of what we want? Because that's the conscious, I call it top of the head thinking that we tend to do sometimes. And we can, and where those wants live, where we, oh, I want this, I want that, I want the other. But then how do we actually do some work to get there? And so it's, well, self-awareness, self-exploration, self-discovery, all of those self things that helps us to identify. And then from there, we go on to really, gathering the knowledge about ourselves and looking at what I look at as the belief system. And that is the key to transformation. Whatever is programmed from before when you were a child, that's the same programming you have now. And so if you want to change, you have to change at that depth and at that level. So hence all the other parts come in first. And so you can work on that.
Well, I can see how my life might change if a 5-year-old weren't running it.
Yes, yes. Because I mean, we pick up. We were like sponge when we were born, so all of those things we pick up and absorb within ourselves, and then we start living our lives that way, and it becomes like the self-fulfilling prophecy. One of the things I recognize is that if that belief system does not change, and you have an idea that, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do all of these things, if you haven't changed the belief to support that, then you won't be getting any results other than what you've gotten in the past. You'll start, and next thing you know, you'll hear that message that says, it's too hard. Maybe I just am not good enough. Maybe I'm just, not deserving. And, when you have challenges. And so you have to be willing to work on it at the cellular level first and get everything organized and in line. You don't have to get it perfect, because we're not talking about perfection at all. We're just talking about recognizing, becoming aware, and then starting that journey, because you're going to have to do some, self-development in order to move yourself forward.
Well, I guess it's great as long as you don't expect the 5-year-old self to do the self-development on the 30-year-old person.
Right. Well, the thing that happened is recognizing that 5-year-old self. And so for me, for example, I have baby girl Sopheia and big girl Sopheia. And big girl Sopheia is the one that has been around for some time and have experienced life. And so most of the time, baby girl needs to be protected. So one of the things that I do is, looking at the situation and just saying, okay, now it's time to sit down and I need to take the lead and let's look at what we need to do going forward in order to live the life that we truly want.
Yeah, and it's great that you are helping other people do it, because I mean, you've now gotten some experience and some knowledge, clearly, and some expertise, but most people don't. So they wouldn't even really know where to start. At least that's my perception.
Right. Well, sometimes when we bring up the subject matter, it sounds foreign. And you're like, well, wait a minute, what do I need to do? Where do I need to do this? And why do I need to do that? And so it's all a part of growth. Now, if we think about, we want to be able to grow and change. I used to have experiences where things would happen and then I would have like hard times. And I would say to myself, okay, God, I don't need any more lessons. And then what I would do, then after a while of saying that, okay, I don't need any more lessons. Can we get past this one? And then we're done. I realized that it was ongoing, that life continues to go. And if I wanted to continue to grow and change and be committed to living to my highest potential, I had to keep learning those lessons. And so that's what this is all about, is that when you want more out of life, you have to be willing to put in the work.
Well, I think it's that attitude of gratitude that says, thank you for this lesson. All right.
Yes.
And what else is there for me? As opposed to not wanting to learn the lessons, because you can't grow unless it'd be like somebody going to school, not learning anything. That wouldn't be a real guarantee
Right.
of success.
Right. Exactly. I mean, my client Anne, before she worked with me, she had like this really dysfunctional relationship with herself. And it was like deeply flawed. And so she just, kind of was always looking outside of herself, seeking validation and permission from others in order to do the things that she wanted to do. She had to always, it seemed like she was always asking, okay, what do you think about this idea? Is this going to be okay? Instead of really just giving herself the permission she needed to be able to do the things that she wanted to do. And when she didn't get permission from others, she would berate herself and just be so negative about it. But after we were able to work together, she was able to learn that self-validation and really self-influence and start being able to expand her personal power, recognizing that she can think for herself, she can feel, she can do all of these things that will help her move herself forward, where she doesn't need to be validated any longer from people or from different situations in her life, that she had it all within herself.
That's so great because, I mean, you really can't expect somebody else to help you live your life.
Exactly.
They're trying to live theirs. And, maybe they can help you see it, but they really, you've got to decide for yourself. I mean, it's these decisions and then living with those decisions and maintaining those decisions. That's the real work. I see it as I see it.
Right. I think one of the things that happen is that people don't recognize that they have a choice. And I think that that is one of those things when you're stuck in the autopilot and you're just keep doing the same thing day in and day out. It's hard to recognize that you have a choice, that you have options about how you actually show up and how you live your life. And so with that, once you get that awareness that I do have a choice, then you have a decision to make. It's sort of like you're at the end of a road, but there's two forks. One goes to the left and one goes to the right. And you now have to decide which way I'm going to go. And so, okay, let's say you select one of the paths, path A, and you start going down there, and then you realize that it's no longer what you want. Then you can get a shortcut. Instead of having to go all the way back, you just cut across and get to the other side and start your journey in lane B.
Yeah, but oftentimes, it's scary. You dash down lane A, and then you go, "Wow, but what if I made the wrong choice? Maybe I better go back and try the other one."
Right.
And sometimes you just have to carry on and go, "This will get me where I want to go," because it's a path down the road, and we'll see. It's up to me.
Right. I mean, definitely it's about having confidence and really having confidence in yourself that I'm able to do what I need to do. I'm capable of doing great things and I'm capable of living this particular life that I have chosen to live.
I bet you it's helpful for people in relationship too, when
Yes.
when they're not expecting their mate to make decisions or validate them, or
Mhm.
I mean, because each one of us has our own challenges to living. We don't need somebody else's.
Right. I mean, definitely, because when we think about relationships can be hard. And it's sort of like when we get there, we can start thinking, okay, so I have this, I want this, and this is how I want we can have this big picture of how we want our relationship to be. And then we present that argument to the next person, and they're like, no, I don't agree. This is not what I signed up for. I want this other. And so we can end up where, you get in situations where, you're experience divorce or something like that. Like, my client Sarah, she was going through a divorce and she felt absolutely like a failure because of that. And so as I worked with her, she was able to experience, self-acceptance, which is a part of the self-mastery that's absolutely essential. Because if you don't accept yourself as you are, then you really can't change anything about, your life going forward. And so, she recognizes that she made mistakes, just like we all do. Nobody's perfect. And we all are challenged in how we're living our lives. So, and even though the marriage failed, one of the things that she came away from is recognizing that she herself was not a failure. And that is a huge thing in the self mastery, because you're able to keep yourself on track. You acknowledge, you recognize, and you accept what the things are that's happening around you, but also know that it doesn't define who you are. You define you.
Well, and the thing that's sometimes really hard, I bet, is for people to distinguish themselves from their circumstances. That,
Yes.
Because sometimes circumstances almost mitigate against our real
Mhm.
success, but to acknowledge that those circumstances weren't workable, and that it was circumstances, and
Right.
we needed to take charge of us so we could step away from it or go in a different direction or something.
Yes. I mean, definitely. I think one of the things that happen is really being able to recognize the things that you can and can't control. You can always control you. And that's why I always say, my part of my tagline is take control of your life and create the life you love. Because we have to recognize we can control our responses instead of having, when things happen in our circumstances, we have this reaction. I call it sometimes rolling down the mountain. We roll down the mountain and we don't know how to stop the roll. And we just kind of continue to spiral until we hit a place where, we're completely unhappy. But if we learn that there are certain things that we can't control. We can't control the outside, what's going to happen, how it happens, and even when it happens. But we can control and be prepared within ourselves. And that's self mastery, to then take the steps of responding instead of reacting.
Yeah, that's great because, um, we want to be able to respond
Mhm.
after having considered it, as opposed to just reacting in the moment, where
Mhm.
it's sort of like, I've always heard the fear response, and people jump into a fear response because it's buried deep in our little brain.
Mhm.
The reptilian brain is always afraid for us and always, wants us to just stay there. Don't try to move. Don't try to improve. Don't go anywhere.
Right,
Don't
right,
do
right.
anything. Well, that's not the way to live. So
No.
you have to kind of take that little, reptilian brain. As I told my son when I, was 3 and he was scared to get on the ski lift for the first time. I went, well, bring the fear along because we're going. Let's have fun. And,
Right.
it was like, oh, I don't have to get rid of the fear. No, just bring it along.
Right, right. I mean, that's a big, big part of it. I used to call it the zombie. I said the things that happen is zombies, they don't communicate. They don't use words. They just kind of grunt and go crazy and bite your face off. And that's that reaction out of control. So when you're able to recognize, yeah, I do have fear. And I do feel this way. I feel nervous and I might be unsure, but I'm still doing it anyway. And that's it. That's all you need, is to be able to take that step. So many times in my life, I've been walking, and I'm a walker. So I do a lot of walking out in the woods and in nature. And sometimes it's so cold in the wintertime here. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, my face is freezing and burning and all of those things. And I said, you know what? I don't have to even figure out how I'm going to get back or how much longer it has to take. All I need to do is to just take the next step. And I think that is just a mirror of life. a lot of times when we feel fear or feel like doubts or whatever, it is to just take the next step. What's the next action that I can take? And take that and just keep moving. Take the next one and just keep moving forward.
Well, it's such an amazing thing to hear. And I was listening, I think, to the news or something last night, and they were interviewing this woman who had lost her leg, and she had decided that as a way of getting better and recovering and getting used to her fake leg, she was going to run 104 marathons in 104 days. Now, that is clearly impossible. Most people go out and run a marathon, even fit people, and they're, out for a few weeks to recover. But, when the person who was interviewing her asked her, so what did you do? I took the next step. I always just took the next step.
That's it. That's it.
And you can always take the next step. As long as you're standing up, you can take the next step.
Exactly.
And that's so hard for people to think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the hardest part, is to take that next step, because we could think about, okay, we need to turn back. We need to do this other thing. Maybe we just need to quit right now. But if we just take the next step, sometimes the opportunity that we're looking for when we're, moving our lives forward is right around the corner. And we don't always know that. We can't see, that far in front of us. But if we take the next step, then that opportunity will meet us. I've heard the saying that which you're seeking is also seeking you. And so it's really that conversion of when that thing that you desire meets you, and you both are able to then move together.
Yeah. Well, and you're there and ready to recognize it and move on with it. Then things can really start to go fast.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, sadly, we are running out of time. Although we've got a couple of minutes, what exactly would you tell people to do to move their lives forward?
Become aware. I think that's the first step, is really to acknowledge that awareness for yourself, and then start working on understanding yourself, because with awareness comes discovery. And then make that choice. Make the choice to move, and then continue to move, and just take the next step and the next step. Because a lot of time we could get stuck behind, like you talk about fear, is one of the biggest enemies, emotional enemies that we have, that tend to always keep us stuck.
So how do you become aware?
You start by just that introspection. You start looking at yourself, looking at the way you think, looking at the way you feel, looking at how you behave, looking at your belief system. And then all of that awareness, when you start just kind of taking notes, journaling is one of the really good ways that you can start really getting introspective on yourself, where you just kind of just start writing down what you're feeling, what you're thinking, even writing down your belief system. And then you can start, be ready to unpack it, understand it better, be able to recognize your strengths, your weaknesses, all of those aspects of who you are as a person, and accepting yourself. Also, with doing journaling, you get to practice that self-love, some self-compassion, empathy and kindness towards yourself. We often talk about self-care and self-love, and those two aren't the same thing. Self-care is born from self-love, and it starts after you're able to have that self-compassion for yourself, that empathy and kindness. Then you're able to do the self-care and step into that, and then it's so much more meaningful at that point.
Yeah, I guess that makes total sense. Yes. So how can people get in touch with you if they would like to know more, learn more, get more aware, start to become aware? I mean, I think, I guess I'm going to have to start journaling. It's something that I don't give myself time for. I've always got project this and project that and project, XYZ that I've got to get going. And I think just to journal and let God tell you
Right, right. I
what's
mean,
around the corner, you know?
yes, definitely. I mean, other ways that you can also do like video journaling, it doesn't have to be necessarily writing. It's just that you need to find a process of processing your thoughts, a way of really processing your thoughts. So for me, one of the ways that I use as well as journaling is to go outside and then just talk out loud. And I talk out loud to myself. I acknowledge what I'm feeling. Let's say I had a meeting with somebody and that kind of left me feeling some type of way, then I bring it up and then we talk about it. And then by the end, if there's some resolution, it's like, okay, this is how we're going to move going forward. So
Yes,
definitely, yeah.
that's great because it's that you can find a way to move forward. I think that,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I can take this next step. What is my next step? Oh, it's
Yeah.
that one. Okay.
Yeah. Well, people can get in touch with me if they go to calendly.com/Sophia Speaks Wisdom, and just book a call. And I also will give them a complimentary copy of my life assessment. Are you living a life you love? And Sophia is spelled with Sopheia. So that's calendly.com/Sophia Speaks Wisdom.
I think that's great. And we should probably spell Calendly too, because we all say it. But
Yes.
it's CALENDLY.com
Yes.
because it's not a word that most people know.
Right. Yes.
Anyway, Sophia, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to have you. And just to bring that awareness to people that there is the life that they would love just
Yes.
by becoming aware and
Yes.
learning what is their next step. And it might
Yes.
be booking that Calendly meeting with you.
Yes. I would love to support anyone who gives, book a calendar call and everything. It's just absolutely my pleasure to be able to support anyone who needs it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our listeners for another interesting show of the Inspirational Influencer News, people making a difference. And Sophia, our guest today, clearly is one of those.